Hey guys, Andrew Krauss, inventRight co-founder here. Sorry for being a few minutes late. I was having my browser was hanging up. Okay, so if one or two of you could type in yes, just so you know you can hear me, because one time I just started rambling and people were like, I can't hear you. So just to be clear, thank you. We're good. I got enough now. I got one person saying, one of you can hear me, all of you can hear me. So for those of you that are new, what inventRight's all about is guiding people to license their products. And what that means is when you license your product, you're selling it for royalties. You're not doing an outright sale 99 times out of 100. You're receiving money as they make money, you make money. So you don't need to raise money either. You know, it's their money, it's their workforce, and it's their distribution. So you don't need to raise money, you don't need to start a business, you don't need employees, but you do need to license that product to a really big company that already has all those things, the money, the employees, and the distribution. And that's what we guide our students to do. And everything that's involved with that, whether it be provisional patents or making a sell sheet or making a video or figuring out who your list of companies are, figuring out what your point of difference is for your product. So it really makes sense, because these companies, when they get your marketing piece, they're going to look at it and go, will my customers buy this if they saw this? And you know, you got to be very, very direct to the point. So they look at it and go, yeah, my customers might want that, and then they might get back to you. You know, and keep in mind, you know, we're guiding our students to reach out to 20 or 30 companies. You only need one. Sometimes you get interest from 4 or 5. Sometimes you only get interest from 1. Sometimes you get interest from none. You know, it's just the way it goes sometimes. But then you can tweak it, come on back. And I get students licensing stuff all the time if they realize they were doing something wrong. But for the most part, when we're coaching our students, we're guiding you to do it right from the get-go. But there is always a lot of adjustment and changing you need to do after you get into companies. You know, don't think that if you have a product idea that they're not going to have a suggestion or a complaint and you can't have an improvement. You need to be willing to adjust. A lot of inventing is done after you reach out to companies. My chair is a little low there. I'm going to raise that up. Okay, so let's just jump in. If you have any questions, you can type them into the questions box. We don't guide people to venture and sell the products themselves. We guide people to license it, so then you can license another one, another one, another one. You don't need to run a business, okay? And it gives you a lot of flexibility, and it's something that you can do with 2 to 6 hours a week. I always tell our students, look, I want you to spend 2 to 6 hours a week every week. It's more important that you're really consistent on doing work every week than it is you go crazy one week and don't do anything for 3 weeks. I don't find that that works well for people. Also, when we're coaching people, they don't feel like they're going in circles anymore. They're really moving forward. But anyway, so we do these free Q&As, and I do them, been doing them almost every Monday during the pandemic. So hopefully you guys find this helpful. People always say that they are. So go ahead and type your questions in. And anything that I share tonight should not be considered legal advice. Please consult the services of an attorney if you need legal advice. Mike says, many questions for having these Monday Q&A events. They are extremely helpful. You're welcome, Mike. And so Mike says, got like a 3-part question here. Do they actually limit how much you can type? They don't let you type that all in one thing? So Mike said, when negotiating with firms, I assume you let each firm you know you are negotiating with others at the same time. Yes, no, maybe. Okay, you had like 3 questions, so I'm going to get to that question. So no, you don't. And so getting initial interest from multiple companies happens very frequently for us and our students, because our students are doing everything right. And if you got a little bit of initial interest from more than one company, are you telling that to other companies? Absolutely not. That is not, you don't want to play them against each other. Sorry, I knocked the table there and the camera bounced up and down. You don't want to play them against each other. That's not something you want to do. It rubs them wrong. And you definitely don't want to talk about things you're saying to other companies, because they're like, oh, well, now he's saying probably stuff, confidential stuff we shared, you know, to other companies as well. So no kissing and telling. They naturally fall off. So it's very common, extremely common for students in some cases to get interest from 3 or 4 or 5 companies. You know, and sometimes it's just one, plenty of times just one, but it's very common to get interest from multiple. You have those initial calls and you have those discussions. It's very rare that we see like a student with 3 companies and 3 contracts. Now, sometimes the contract happens early. Most of the time it doesn't. Most times there's a lot of back and forth before you get to a contract. Sometimes they'll send it to you early, so that's a different kind of thing because you still need to talk about all those deal points and then have those discussions. So without a doubt, you should not be talking to other ones. Now if it gets, and it's very rare, we had a student of ours who got in this scenario. It's very rare you get to those final stages. So and without knowing all the deal points and where you are with each company, that's something that our negotiation coach, and I've done it many times too, will help you assess. Okay, in this situation, we're very, very close here, or, a litmus test is, or a thing you need to be concerned about is, if they're going to go out and spend, which they don't the vast majority of the time, that's why it's really not a problem, they're going to spend $5,000 on a prototype. Now, if they're just getting some quotes overseas or something, okay, I don't see that as this massive commitment. But if they're going to spend $5,000 on a prototype, they get a whole bunch of different people in their company spinning their wheels, and they're spending money, and they're really, really getting into it. There is a point at which you might need to have that discussion, but it happens very infrequently. But no, you're not just like, oh, I just want to let you know I have interest from 2 other companies. That's going to hurt you more than it's going to help you, and it's almost never going to bite you in the butt. Could it, if you didn't go about it the right way and at the right time speak up? Yes, but there's no way I could tell you what that time is without figuring out your particular case with the companies and the product and the issues being looked at. And a lot of times you're like, we're probably going to be going with this one anyway, But I can only think of maybe 2 incidences that I know of in 21 years where the companies got upset about it. It can happen, but no, you're going to be doing yourself more a disservice if every time you get a little interest, you feel like you need to talk to every other company and tell them you got interest. No, of course you're shopping. If they ask you, of course I'm shopping it around, but I don't kiss and tell. You don't say, I don't use those words. So, Mike, I'll jump back to some of your other questions, but I want to give everybody a chance. So this is a great question, Mike. Okay. Dr. Earth says, and feel free to type your first name if you got a weird handle, but I can read your weird handle too, either way. Dr. Earth says, hello, Andrew. What are the best? You must have been listening to my webinar, so hello and welcome, everyone. What are the types of companies that license ideas? For example, suppliers, retailers, manufacturers. I'm finding companies for my list, and it's hard to tell which one I should contact. Yeah, I can tell by the way you ask the question you don't know what you're doing, and that's fine. You don't license to retailers. In rare instances, retailers will make their own house brands, and it's becoming more prevalent. But for the most part, they're just trying to reduce cost on generic items. I'm sorry, I was talking kind of louder because I had my AC going because it got hot in here. But retailers will make their own house brands, and you don't even know that it's their own house brand quite often. Like, I think, is it Mainstays is a Walmart brand? I think. I'm just going by memory. And you don't even know it's a Walmart brand. You start approaching or you do some more research, like, oh, Walmart owns this. But they're usually trying to reduce their costs on generic items by cutting out the manufacturer and going direct to China. But they don't do that on innovative products. For the most part, retailers, they're not anything you'd be licensing them, they're not going to be interested in. They'd rather just buy it from one of their vendors. So you don't really license to retailers most of the time. You're going to be licensing to the manufacturers that sell to the retailers. And the litmus test is, are they in major retailers? So look at the major retailers and find those companies that are in there. So thank you, Dr. Ruth. That was a good question. Let's see. Okay. Justin said, hi, could you talk about licensing a product to a company that, for example, makes coffee mugs like Stanley Company, and you have a specific lid that is designed specifically to fit one of their current product lines? Okay. Can you talk about licensing a product to a company that makes coffee mugs like Stanley Company? Stanley is a tool manufacturer, and could you have a new lid is designed specifically to fit one of their current product lines? Okay, good. I like this question. Yes, you can make a specific product for that one company, but this is what you should do if you really want to be a pro. You should ask yourself, okay, this would work great with their current product, but if they don't license it, could this work? Could I reach out to 10 or 20 or 30 other companies? Would it work for their products as well? And if the answer is yes, then definitely work on that project. But the answer is no. Literally, no one else could license this. Then you're going to do all that work. You're going to file a PPA. You're going to make a sell sheet to show to one company. Doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's not playing the numbers game that we teach people to play. But if you're like, no, it would be great for the Stanley company you're mentioning, but I can make that same sell sheet and I can make it apply to a bunch of other companies. If there's something specific for their company, you could say, I think it would fit great with your such and such product line, and we can modify it or whatever. But working on projects that are for one company, it's too much work. You're not playing the numbers game, So I'm not saying don't do it, but man, that's a lot of work. And it's not the InventRight way or working on a project. Most of our students, they only think they have 2 or 3 companies. They talk to the coach and they're like, oh, yeah, I guess I would have 20 or 30. Coach shows them, you can look over here, look over there. And so sometimes people that aren't our students, they think that they have this really limited list and they're just not looking at it right. And without looking at the specific product, sometimes you don't. A coach who's helping people all day long, they know where to guide. Look over here, look over there. But yeah, you can license one product to one company, and if they're not interested, you're done. And it'd be completely crazy to file a patent, but you file a provisional for $75 using our software, and then you do your sell sheet, and then you're only going to approach one company. So begin with the end in mind and know the path you're walking down, and you should really have other companies as well. So that was a great question. Thank you for asking that, Justin, because I think it gave a lot of perspective to everybody listening. Let's see. V says, do you have any advice about emailing a CEO about your patent? Do you keep emailing them or finally see it? So there's 2 things wrong with what you're saying. And this is just so everybody can learn. So I love that you asked that question. It's a great question. So first of all, do you have advice about emailing your CEO? We don't tell you to email a CEO. We tell you to email a marketing manager. Now, there are some smaller companies where CEO might be appropriate, but CEOs don't do work. You want a marketing manager. So that's one thing you're doing wrong. Don't email the CEO. They don't have time to work on stuff, and they're just going to shove it down to somebody else, and then they're not getting championed for finding you. You approach a marketing manager, and they can show it to the CEO, oh, Bob, yeah, I love that. Keep working on that. And then Bob gets credit for finding you. So you don't want to go to the CEO. If it's a really small company, that's where you end up, and they'll direct you there. But don't automatically think going to the CEO is the right place, because it's not. The other thing about you said about your patent. No, it's nothing to do about your patent. It's to do about the benefit of your product. So you're going to send a marketing piece, a sell sheet or a video, which shows them how they're going to market to their customers. So the marketing piece is for their customer. And it has nothing to do with the patent. You're not even mentioning a patent. You file a provisional and you put patent pending in very small letters, not big paranoid letters on your sell sheet, but it has nothing to do with your patent. So I know I'm just like picking apart words, but you don't approach a company, I want to talk to you about my patent, or send them your patent as a sales tool. Never, ever, ever. It's not a marketing piece. It's a terrible sales tool. They will not take the time to look at it. You have about 6 seconds to make an impression. Them digging through your patent is not going to accomplish that, and you will fail. So, so don't call a CEO. That's what we learned here, V. And don't talk about your patent. I want to talk to you about my patent. You're approaching it all wrong in both of those, but we just easily fix that. Marketing manager, and send a marketing piece. Don't talk about your patent. If you don't have a marketing piece, you're not ready to approach companies. You don't send a patent as a marketing tool. Terrible, terrible thing to do. Rookie move 101. Perfectly fine if you've done it. Don't worry if you've done one of these things wrong. They won't even remember you if you come back with a good marketing piece. Sometimes people have this sense of finality, And yeah, if you do wacky stuff and you say wacky stuff, they might remember you. But if you just try to show them your patent and then they didn't get back to you, and you're like, oh, I learned from Andrew, I shouldn't do that. And now I'm going to create a marketing piece, send it to them later. They won't even remember you or your product, and because you sent them a patent, they probably didn't even look at it because they're like, what am I supposed to do with this? You know. So if you guys have done things wrong, don't worry about it. If you've acted like a crazy person, asked for $250,000 up front, they might remember you pretty well. Okay, but besides that, you can always reach back out. So don't stress about that. Let's see. Jason says he's not getting a response from somebody. He sent something and just send it again. It looks like you're asking them to sign an NDA, Jason, and a lot of companies don't want to do that. And we talk about that. And this is not legal advice, but the practicality, the practical nature, and what actually works, and what attorneys tell you to do sometimes aren't one of the same. So you've filed. This is what the inventRight thought process is, and this is not legal advice. But you filed your provisional patent. What are you worried about? Why are you thinking that an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, is going to give you all this protection? Now, if it's a product that you can't get any patent on at all, it's just a trade secret, then the NDA can be great. But why are you insisting this person sign an NDA? Why don't you just show them your product? And if you file the PPA, you're fine, a provisional patent application. So but that's your personal decision. If your attorney is like, no, you have to get every company to sign your NDA, you can do that. But I can tell you right now, from a practical standpoint, in the United States, you're going to feel like you're beating your head up against a brick wall. European companies feel differently about it. They're used to doing a lot of that, but they don't have a provisional patent like we do. So, you know, you're going to be beating your head up against a brick wall if you ask everybody to sign an NDA. But again, that's not legal advice. Justin said, hi, Andrew, can I license a generic product to multiple different brands where all that change is the brand and the name of the product? Doesn't really make a lot of sense, does it? So, but it could. So a generic product to multiple different brands where the change is the brand name of the product. Well, it's still the same product. So, and also, you know, what you're saying here is a little confusing because you're saying, Andrew, can I license a generic product? And the answer is no, you can't license a generic product. You have to have a point of difference for somebody want to license it. So I'm not sure what you mean there. It's got to be somewhat inventive or have some sort of benefit over and above other products in that space. So you're not going to be able to license that at all unless you have a point of difference. But maybe it's just your use of the word generic. You used it in a certain way. But here's which I say this on every call, and it's really important, so I don't mind saying it again. You can't license to multiple companies if they're stepping on each other's toes. If they're selling on the same shelf at Walmart or Target or Lowe's or Home Depot or wherever, that's not going to make sense. Now one doesn't have a point of difference over the other. But if they sell in different distribution channels where they're not stepping on each other's toes, maybe it's a different version of the product. You know, maybe it's a different geography. Like they're only West Coast and this company's on East Coast or whatever. Then it makes sense. But here's the thing. When you license to one big company, you can have delusions of grandeur and you're not delusional because they can do huge volume. Depends on the company. But maybe they're doing 10, 20, 50, 100, 200,000 units a year. And for you to try to sell the product yourself and do that, that would be insane. So don't be greedy. If they're going to be able to do 50,000 units a year and that's kicking ass and they're a major player, be happy with that. Don't think like, oh, if I license it to 5 companies, I'll make more. No, if you license to 5 companies, first, they're not going to do it. But second of all, doesn't give that one company something unique to sell. There are isolated instances. This isn't black and white for all the time. But, you know, and sometimes you might have like a low price version, a high price version, and one doesn't care about the other. Okay. Or they're selling in different distribution channels, or it's a different version of the product where it's perceived differently or marketed differently. All those things are a possibility in doing deals with multiple companies. But with what you're saying, it's not a good idea. But don't think you're going to make more money. If you get this one big ass company and they're going to license it and pay you royalties all the time, you should be happy with that. You move on, you license another product, another product, another product. And to think that you're going to get them competing against each other, it defeats the whole purpose, right? They don't have a point of difference. Okay. Matt Miller said, "Hi, Andrew. I got rejected from my submission to Hasbro, but they emailed me some toy broker information. Does that mean they like my idea, but they want to see a prototype? What does it mean?" Well, it means they sent you a toy broker information. You need to ask them. So reply back. Say, I don't know if that means that they don't want to work directly with you, that you want to just go to a toy broker. Because now they have that portal. You're supposed to be able to go direct with them. It might be that they don't want to deal directly with you. It might be, ask for feedback. A company as big as Hasbro doesn't always give it. There are a lot of toy companies will give you some really nice feedback, even like say, why did you try this or that company, if you're nice. So I would ask for the feedback, but it's basically, it's in a roundabout way, kind of like saying, I would ask them. I would say, do you want me to work on this project with this broker? Or are you saying if they didn't say, okay, you got rejected. So they did reject you. They rejected your submission, and they sent you a link to a toy broker. So I don't know what that means. That might mean that they don't feel like your presentation is professional enough. And they're like, our students don't get that because their presentations kick ass. But maybe they're like, this guy needs to be schooled by a broker. And by the way, there are only legitimate brokers in the toy business, not outside the toy business. But so they might say, well, he needs to hear it from them because we don't want to deal with it, that his presentation was terrible or whatever. Now, I don't know that's the case. So, but they said no. So no is no, and they don't always give you feedback. You can ask for it. Can I have a minute of feedback? Reattach everything so they can give you a minute of feedback. Try. But I wouldn't be surprised if they don't respond because it's Hasbro and they're huge. It's really nice that they have that portal now that you can submit through. So that's nice. But yeah, I don't know exactly what they mean by sending you to a broker. Sam says, does the inventRight course come with licensing materials like negotiations checklists? Negotiations are so important. Our students are always with their licensing coach during the entire process. But then we add our negotiation coach, Paul, to the mix because it's kind of dicey. So just having a simple checklist is not it. You need somebody to guide you through a negotiation. You experience it firsthand, and then you can do it on your own. It's a lot more than a checklist. You can't just have a checklist that's going to work. That would reduce our students' chances of success. But can you become empowered with going direct to companies and doing negotiations yourself later? Absolutely you can. And that's one of our major goals for our students. But you have to experience the process. It's not a simple checklist. But yes, we do give a lot of checklists to our students in different areas, go through this stuff, a lot of video trainings. But the big thing is the one-on-one with the coach. That makes all the difference. When you learn, we do what I call experiential learning. You're learning by working on real-life projects, one-on-one with your coach. You felt it, you experienced it. It wasn't like this university type learning where it's like I read a book or a video, but it's not going to tell me what to do with this particular project. And you didn't experience it firsthand. So it's more like, our coaching is more like going to a vocational school where you're learning how to work on a car, or you're learning how to do it firsthand than it is like book learning, if you will, which is cool. People like that about us. Let's see what we got next. Jen said, if you get a provisional patent, is it necessary to have people sign an NDA? That's your decision. So you need to consult your attorney, Jen. But in inventRight, we teach people that you're going to be beating your head up against a brick wall if you ask every company to sign your non-disclosure agreement up front. File your provisional patent. I haven't had one of our students that I know of, that was presented an idea to a potential licensee, a company, and had their idea stolen. So I guess my question is, what is your concern? That somebody's going to steal your idea? To think that an NDA is going to protect you from that is not true. Now, it looks very professional when it says patent pending, because when you file a provisional patent, you can legally say patent pending across your sell sheet. We always advise all our students to file a provisional patent application. Always, always, always. So I can't provide you with legal advice, but, you know, and like, so let's say they see your sell sheet. A lot of times the product is just really obvious. It's like, this is how it is and this is how it's made. Sometimes there's inner workings and you wouldn't know what that is. So at that point, you know, you're not one of the 300 inventors that sent them products that month. And everyone wants the company to sign their NDA. They need a full-time legal person to review every NDA to make sure that it didn't say something in there like you own their company. So that's why they're very resistant to sign your NDA, because it's very time-consuming. They need to look through it. But they'll readily give you theirs if they have one. And sometimes they'll give you some measure of protection. Sometimes it just more or less protects them. But you've got your provisional patent application, you know. But any submission agreement or NDA, sometimes we'll say NDA. This isn't very common, guys, but I see it sometimes. And it's really a non-disclosure agreement. It's saying that we're not agreeing to keep it confidential, which is very common. And if you filed your provisional patent application, personally, I'm okay with that. You know, they're saying, look, we don't know what you're showing us yet. We can't agree to keep it confidential. Because, you know, if they sign your NDA and they don't know what you're sending, it's kind of like the chicken or the egg first, right? And they're signing something, yes, we won't disclose it ever. But what if they're working on something similar? What if what if something in that area, now they're more afraid of you guys than you should be of them. They're afraid of lawsuits, that you're gonna make all these claims. But you're filing a provisional patent, and then you're creating a paper trail on what you sent them and when via email, because still it's the first true inventor to invent, you know, first to patent system, but first true inventor to patent, sorry, system now. So, you know, if me saying we've been doing this for 21 years, we've had students in 65 countries, and we've never had a student that I know of knocked off by a company they presented to, if that's not good enough for you, you need to not only get out of licensing, but you need to get out of business altogether and just get a day job, and you're not okay with risk. Now, with that said, I'm not beating you up, Jen. I mean, it's not really your question. Tons of people ask that. It's a common question. But you need to be willing to take some risk. And really, they're taking a bigger risk just by receiving ideas than you are by sending them an idea. And one of the other things I always talk about is conducting yourself professionally is a major form of protection too. So for that 3 or 4% of companies that might consider knocking you off, when they see you have great marketing materials, you say smart things via email, you're smart when you talk to them, they don't want to mess with you. But they might mess with that wacky inventor that was saying crazy stuff, and they could see you didn't know what you're doing. So when you conduct yourself professionally, that is, I think, just as much protection as any provisional patent application. And I think that's the reason why it hasn't happened. One of our students, I've talked to inventors that say they got ripped off, the idea stolen, and most of them, when I interview them, I realize that's not the case. It was their paranoia. But some of them, I'm like, that really sucks. That sounds like you gave me the whole trajectory of how things played out, and that really blows, you know. But it hasn't happened to our students, and it will one day. Don't get me wrong. It's like, can't say never going to happen. But all right, so I'm not really familiar, SC, with the current bills, or there's an actual bill. I don't know if a bill is the right word, so I can't comment on any bills in Congress to help inventors. I'm not up on that. Stuff usually changes pretty slow, so I'm not sure what bill you're referring to. So I can't comment on it. Kevin says, hey, Andrew, when constructing a sell sheet, must the item I'm developing be a true representation of the final product? Can I use an existing product to give a visual understanding of the concept? Absolutely, Kevin, and I highly encourage you to do that. So quite often our students, we do our marketing pieces for our students, and I'd say for about 70% of our students these days, we'll do a virtual prototype. And we can make that look exactly like what the inventor wants the final prototype to look like. But you might do a video where you cannibalize some existing product, you duct taped it together, and you kind of shoot it from a little bit of a distance. So they're like seeing the virtual prototype, oh, that's what it looks like. And so when they see your more crude prototype, if you're using it or not using it, it's okay. Because what you're truly selling is not your prototype or your patent, it's the benefit of your product. So it's the marketing piece that shows them the benefit of the product. That's your sales tool, not your patent or your prototype. Now you need a visual representation of it, so it could be a virtual prototype. But absolutely, you can cannibalize existing products. We've been guiding our students to do that for 21 years. So absolutely, you can do that, and I highly encourage you to do so. It varies depending on the product, of course. It's depending on what the situation and what's needed. Okay. Olefemi. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right. You and Stephen have said in the past that most ideas do not need a patent. Could you elaborate on big ideas that need patents? I'm working on AI robotics idea, but does this type of idea need a patent? Okay. So when we say you don't need a patent, Stephen says that quite often, and I always say you don't need a full utility patent. I think it's very important you get a provisional, and that's what Stephen means as well. But Stephen will quite often say you don't need a patent, but we do believe and guide all our students to get a provisional patent, which is not a patent. So a provisional patent is actually, and patent attorneys will highlight this, it's a provisional patent application, right? If you don't later file a provisional and cite the provisional patent, there's no protection there, right? You have to later file it, but it gives you that placeholder in time. It's like, well, I got this in, placeholder in time, so if I later file a patent, I'm protected from that date. But if you're only spending $75 on it, and if there's no interest, great, you only spent $75. You didn't spend 10 grand on a patent, right? And so even on more complicated products like robotics, I would always file a provisional patent application for $75. And we give our students some software called Smart IP to do that, and you can purchase it separately on our website as well. It's only like $99 if it's purchased separately. Areas like robotics, what I would say to you, Olafemi, is that sometimes inventors are doing technology, but I'm like, what's the application? Oh, it has so many. I'm like, great, it has so many. We need to break down all those applications. Could it go in this type of product, that type of product, here, there? And then you go for the lowest hanging fruit, the easiest deal to close with the least effort. And then you can prove it out, and then you can license it in other areas if it has a lot of different applications. So with AI robotics, it probably has a lot of different applications. You need to figure out what the end product is. And you need to do enough. It's a lot more complicated than just a new kitchen gadget, right? You need to know enough about it, at least about your improvement. You might not know everything about or very little about the core product, but you're like, hey, guys, I don't get all that, but look, I put this hinge over here and it does this. Or in artificial intelligence, whatever you did with the robot, you can share the point of difference. And you do need to understand the point of difference and how that's going to be implemented to a certain extent. But sometimes you don't understand all the inner workings of the rest of the core product that you're changing. So if it's artificial intelligence robotics, you will definitely positively need a provisional patent and later a patent in that industry, without a doubt. So when we say these things on our YouTube show, it's not black or white. A lot of times it's shades of gray, but we do give a certain sense of some black and white, like generally most of the time you're going here. And everybody inventor thinks they're the exception, and most of the time I'm like, no, your product's no exception, standard inventRight approach. And even when it's not the standard, it's still the inventRight approach. It's like, well, no, it wouldn't apply to yours because of this and this, so I'd go this direction. And that's something that doesn't matter. We have 650 YouTube videos. No matter how many videos we did, that's something we can never cover. That's something that we'd have to cover in one-on-one because every product's a little bit different. But we give a lot of general direction, very specific actually, for what is applicable most of the time. But most of the time, John said, hi, Andrew, does the U.S. government agencies like Department of Defense pay royalties? No. So there might be some exception there. There might be some gray area, but for the most part, when you're trying to license to the Department of Defense, you license to contractors that sell to the Department of Defense. And you need to find those contractors selling those products in somewhat the same space. Like if they're selling fatigues that soldiers would wear, okay, they're in clothing. And it's like, well, I got a clothing product for the Army. So you're going to find the contractors, government contractors that make stuff for the Army, right? It's just that simple. They're not licensing to the Department of Defense. In some rare instances, I could see that making sense, but for the most part, you're licensing to the contractors, the manufacturers that sell to them, which is what, if you think about it, that's what most defense contracts and stuff are all about. So it's not rocket science. Okay, Landon, I like this question. It says, hey, Andrew, I'm just going to take a sip of water here. I was wondering how long going through the licensing process generally takes from having an idea to actually seeing the product on store shelves. So let's talk about that. Once you got to, it's going to take you some time. You got to do your marketing research. You got to look at all the products in the space. Most inventors don't do a good job of that. You got to really understand all the products in your micro category. And then with that knowledge, you need to make a marketing piece. You need to make your list of companies. You need to file your provisional patent. So when I see our students doing that, I'm talking about the students that are paying us for coaching and stuff. Because I've had people that say, like, oh, I've been watching a YouTube show, I'm a student of yours. I'm like, that's cool. That's really flattering. But it's different, obviously, when you're getting one-on-one coaching. So when you're getting one-on-one coaching, you want to do all that stuff. And so what I always tell people is, look, be patient with yourself first time you do it, because first time you do anything in life, it's going to be slower. When I see our students work on their second project, it's 2 to 10 times faster, literally, because they've gone through the whole process with one product. And that's why when people become a student of ours, we always insist, we'd love for you to work on multiple projects, but not out of the gate. You got to get all the way through one. You get the calls, and you don't have to be completely done with it. But then you can put another project in your pipeline and work on two at the same time, because now you've experienced the whole process. So my answer, Landon, is it's going to take longer on your first project when you haven't been through the process before. Second project be way faster. I mean, obviously there's going to be a difference if you get our coaching and we're guiding you through it, and you get that like every week hand-holding stuff, and and you're sending emails and they're keeping you on track. That's different than you're doing it on your own. But either way, it's still true. If you're doing it on your own, you're going to be slower until you get the hang of it. So, but let's talk about when you get the hang of it. You can go on a simple product from having a thought about it to showing it to a company in 2 or 3 weeks. You can do your research, you can crank out a sell sheet, maybe a virtual prototype and a PPA. And our students that are brand new to us don't do it that quick, but if once you've gotten your bearings, that's potential to in 2 or 3 weeks, you're reaching out to companies on a simple product, Now, other difficult product, maybe you didn't do tons of research. It takes a lot of time. But if you don't need to build a prototype, just do a virtual prototype, no, they're going to get it. That's pretty obvious how this thing's going to be done. On a really simple product, from having an idea to starting to reach out to companies, I would say anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks to 2 to 3 months for somebody that's experienced. Maybe 2 to 3 months if it's a very complicated product. Depends on how much time you put into it too, right? You can get all that stuff done really quick if it's familiar to you. But when people are new, it's not familiar. And then there's a lot of back and forth, like you'll reach out, and sometimes companies need to reach out 5, 6 times before they get back to you. Other time you pick up the phone and Sally's like, oh, that's Bob. He likes to get emails. Send it to Bob at XYZ company. And you're like, oh, okay, great. Thank you. And you just send it off. And then another guy, you need to get on LinkedIn, then you call on the phone, and then you do something else, and you finally get a hold of somebody. So it's going to be a mixed bag. It's not like you reach out and everybody will get back to you right away. And that's why once you get used to this, multiple projects in your pipeline, or a lot of companies for each project you work on, you're not anxious about that one company you love so much not getting back to you right away. You don't care. You'll reach out to them on a regular schedule. You'll just keep putting pressure until they say no or say maybe. So there's no or maybe, right? And So then when you do a deal, now I don't know if that was part of your question. So you said how long before you're seeing products on store shelves. So if you did a deal today, right now, this minute, sign the contract, okay? It's going to take them like 3 to 9 months or sometimes more to put it into production. These are big companies. Maybe they have 20, 50, 100, 200, 500 products, right? They don't launch products overnight. They plug it into the machine, and that takes a little while to get up and running sometimes. And then you get paid your royalties quarterly, so every 3 months. So even if you did a deal today, you're not seeing significant money for over a year. So this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. Now, you can make a lot of freaking money with licensing, but it's not overnight. I mean, if the product is making you $50K in royalties, and it's for 5 years, that's $250,000. But it's not oh, give me $250,000 up front crap. You know, that's the best way to kill a deal. So even on a deal that could be earning you a lot of money, you don't want to be asking for that money up front. So most of our students, 95% of them, they're not of the get-rich-quick variety. They're like, I'm passionate about my products. I want to get them out there. I'm so excited. I thought I needed to file a $10,000 patent, $5,000 prototype to start my own company. But now I don't. These inventRight guys are showing me I can file a $75 provisional. I can crank out a sell sheet, maybe a virtual prototype, maybe a cobble together prototype, and I could be in the game. And the deals you can do are very potentially big. So very low investment with very potential big return. But you will not license every single product you work on. Nobody does. So, but, you know, when people leave us, you know, whether they're licensed or not, they've learned the process. And so it's very common for students to come on board with us and they're really into one product. I'm like, fine. And I'm like, but do you have other products? And they're like, some say, oh yeah, I got like 50 other products. And others say, yeah, I come up with stuff all the time. I don't have them on the top of my head. And I say, well, once you become a power of the skill, are you going to work on licensing more later? Oh yeah, Andrew, but this is my main focus now. I'm like, great. So now you're learning a skill. So whether you're learning this just by watching our YouTube show and reading our books, or you're getting on and signing up for our coaching program, either way, you just got to plug away every week and everything starts to become familiar, you know, and that doesn't happen overnight. So Landon, from having an idea in your head to seeing it on the store shelves, which is what you said, I don't know, a year and a half, maybe, year and 3 months, maybe. I've seen it happen faster. I've seen a few exceptions, but I like to appeal to level-headed folks. I don't want to overstate anything with regards to licensing. So anyway, so hopefully that was helpful. Taryn says, do you think ideas that can be patented, either design or utility, would be more valuable than one you could get a copyright on? No, I think it depends on the industry, Taryn. I think that a lot of companies, they kind of like that you file a provisional that says patent pending, but after taking a look at it, they're like, if you want to file it, you can. Other ones are like, yeah, you know, we kind of want the window dressing of saying patented or patent pending, and you negotiate something, maybe in advance on royalties, so they give you the money, and then you give that money, give it to your attorney, and then cite your provisional, right? And it's a lot better than spending all 10 grand up front on a patent and not knowing his interest. I mean, just take the money they give you and then put that towards the patent. Sometimes they won't do that. Other times, you know, maybe you split the cost of the patent, like straight up. But the patent always stays in your name. Or it could be advance on royalties. They give you 8 grand, you give it to your attorney, and then they keep the first 8,000 in royalties, but the patent's yours. It's not theirs. You know, so you always want to retain those rights. But so some companies, Taryn, they just don't care about a design patent, a utility patent, whatever, especially if it's a lower volume product or it's not. And then some really do. So it's going to vary. The answer is kind of what industry it's in. Some like a gift novelty product, they almost never file a patent or anything because it might sell for a year or 2 or 3, and then they got to bring something new in because that's kind of old, you know. So they'll be like, you can do a patent if you want, but we don't care about that. And we Paul, our negotiation coach, whenever we can, we won't make the licensing deal dependent on a patent. If you can get away with that, you always want to do that. People are surprised by that. What am I licensing? Yeah, know how. They agree to it all the time. Can't always get it. But so if you believe the product, a copyright, so you said what you think you can only get a copyright. Copyright's very strong in some ways. I don't know what the product is, but it can be very, very strong because they just look at the copyright. Oh, this is somebody's violating this. You know, it can be very strong. But I don't know what your product is. It's pretty rare that I have a student that can fully protect an idea with a copyright. If it's like a new character or artwork or saying or something, yeah, maybe you can do that. But so I don't know what your product is, so I can't fully answer it. But copyright can actually be pretty strong for the right product. But don't you guys all think like I'll just copyright my idea instead of file a $75 PPA for probably 95 to 98%, 80% of you, you're not going to be doing a copyright. That's not going to be your main form of protection, that is. The copyright's automatic anyway. You just put the C around it. It's automatic anyway. You can file it with the Library of Congress, but you don't have to. So Olafum says, does inventRight have access to robotics companies that are interested in licensing ideas? No, we would guide you to find them, Olafum. Olafemi, I guess is your name. And it's just a process. It's a research process. And so a coach could guide you through finding the right companies that are a right match for your product. It's a methodology. It's a skill that you learn. And that's one of those skills you get more comfortable with just by working on projects. But we're not going to go, oh, here's your robotics companies. Call Bob here and Sally here. The fact that you think you need that, that's just crap. We want to empower you to learn how to make your list and feel empowered to reach out to just about anybody, you know? And that's the inventRight approach. Let's see. All right. The handle is El Chapo Jr. Okay. What direction, I better answer this right, guys, otherwise I'm going to be in trouble with El Chapo. What directions do I take after I have done research and have my invention made up in my mind? What do I talk about? Who do I talk to about making this happen, getting it made, etc.? Well, you can talk to us if you want coaching, El Chapo. Just don't chop us up if you don't like what we have to say. But you can go on inventRight and click on the contact us page and book an appointment with an advisor and talk to us about getting help. So I would take a look at our coaching pages on our website with our one-on-one coaching and our group coaching and get a feel, and so we can guide you. And if you're brand new, I've watched our YouTube show a bunch. Get to know us, get to know and understand licensing a little bit better. We got an insane amount of YouTube shows. Daniel says, when licensing, does the inventor supply the product? No. The manufacturer, they are going to manufacture the product, put their money in, use their workforce. It's now their product. They're renting or leasing your product. You do not need to supply them the product to sell. I've had a few students, not many, over the years that have done hybrid deals. It rarely makes sense. Any manufacturing resources you have, they're going to be able to get better quotes 99 times out of 100. I've had a few students that are manufacturing experts and like have access to a factory or something like that, the hybrid deal where the inventor was actually manufacturing it for the company, the big company, and then they would still get a royalty on top of that. That doesn't make sense most of the time. And most of the time they don't want to do that. They want control over the manufacturing of it, which they should have. But, you know, there's always exceptions, but that's going to be the case most of the time. Okay, Pepe, hi Andrew. If I'm right, you tell us to call first and then email. Like, can I call after the email? You can call whenever the hell you want. She send me a autoresponder email with her number and extension on it. I never call her, just email. Okay. Well, did she? Well, you're only going to want to talk to her if she shows interest in your product. So, you know, I would email her again with the sell sheet and just say, let me know if you're interested. If you're not, just please simply reply, not a right match or not interested, you know. So, but she gave, and I had an autoresponder with the phone number there. You can make a quick call. If it goes to voicemail, I don't know. People these days listening to their voicemails are like, they're just pestering me. It's very unlikely somebody will get back to you on a voicemail, more likely an email. But just to pick up the phone and call, and you could, and what I would do if you do that is I would have the email all queued up, and I have her email address there. So if she picks up, which she probably won't, people won't pick up their phone these days, you could literally just click send, and hey, I got all queued up. Can I send it to you right now? Can you? If you're not interested, no problem. You let me know. But you should try to send at least a couple more emails before you just pick up the phone and call. And sometimes it's good to say, hey, look, it's not a right match. Just say not interested. No problem. I'll understand. Actively ask for the no. Okay. Cubs. Cubs Chicago 1450. That was your handle. Oh no, Pablo. Okay, Pablo here. I'm new to this and I'm willing to learn anything new and everything so I can get my project started. Great. I got scammed by a company in Chicago. He's probably talking about an invention promotion company, I'm assuming. Any suggestions? Yeah, don't. And by the way, if you guys, there's companies telling you things that are too good to be true. I'm not talking about the companies you license to. I'm saying inventors, we can help you, kind of crap. Go to inventorfraud.com, inventorfraud.com, and there's links to the Federal Trade Commission and the Patent Office. Federal Trade Commission, I think, being the key links, explaining how these invention promotion companies work and how they take inventors' money, and inventors are like, what the heck? So I think what he's referring to is getting scammed in the way of money, not inventions. So yeah, what I would do if you're very new to things, Pablo, I would keep watching us on YouTube, but I would go to our website, click on the Contact Us button, and book an appointment with an advisor just to understand how our coaching program works. And they're really mellow. Eli and Sylvia are super mellow, so they won't like hound you and say, why don't you sign up? Don't you want to get rich? They're not going to say crap like that. That's not us. So you can talk to them about what we offer and how it works. And they'll be really nice and kind. And if you decide it's not right for you, fine. But I would also watch more of our YouTube show if you're brand new and get to know us a bit and get to know licensing a little bit too. So anyway, you can go to inventright.com and click on the Contact Us page to book an appointment. Let's see. Tumaj. I have a rehabilitation product. Is it better to license it to U.S. companies, or should I start to look for European companies? Since here in Europe, usually the authorities are the buyers of my product. Yeah, our students license to European and American companies. I definitely see more. What I always tell our students that are in Europe, sometimes people have this perception, well, I'll just approach companies in my home country. No. If all our European students didn't approach American and Canadian companies, they would be making a serious mistake and they wouldn't have be licensing the stuff that they are. So I would reach out to them all. And a lot of times, the big companies that are big in the U.S. might be a European company, but they have a U.S. office, and that's the same as a U.S. company, in my opinion. So I would reach out to Maj. I would reach out to U.S., Canadian, and European companies. I'd reach out to them all. Don't overthink it. Shotgun blast out to them all. And like I always say, inventors will typically have a list of 2 or 3 companies for most projects, not all, because it's not always black and white. Sometimes different industries. They'll have 20 or 30 companies by the time we get done helping them. Now, there are some projects may only have 8 or 10 or 12. But as I talked about earlier, do you really want to work on a project that only has 1 company? And if they say no, you're done? That's not playing this incredible numbers game that you can play when you're licensing. So I think that's a stubbornness on the part of a new inventor. Oh, but it's just for this 1 company. And I'm like, that's not a good use of your time. But I look at the product, I'm like, yeah, I could see it being great for that company, but I could also see it being great for a ton of others. So approach them too. But they're so obsessed with improving this 1 company's product. And you can do that, but if you have a bunch of others companies you can show that same sell sheet to, that's really the pro way to do it. Diddy that. I look like a Pixar villain. Never had that comment before. I don't think so, but okay. I'll take that. I can't take that as a compliment, I think. I am a good guy, though. We are good guys. Just ask any of our students. Jen said, awesome, thanks. You're welcome. That was, I think, to earlier stuff. Hubutro, awesome session. Thanks, Andrew. Mallory said, I'm not in the USA. Do I need any partner there? Absolutely not. It doesn't matter where you are. We've had students in over 65 countries. I had this one woman on a French Polynesian island. I think the population of the entire island was like 1,000 people or something. You can do this from anywhere. As long as you have an internet connection, you're good, because, you know, even with making a phone call, you can use Skype and you put $10 into your Skype out account and you can call US companies, you know, but a lot of time you're just reaching out on LinkedIn. If you need to make a phone call, you just use a Skype in account, pay a few bucks a year for that. You can do this from anywhere. You do not need a partner in the US. It's BS. Your partner is your licensee, the company that you rent or lease your idea to, because they're in all the stores you want to be in because they make products like yours. That's your partner, right? So you do need a partner, your licensee. And the inventor is the licensor, and it's kind of confusing when you're new to it. And the licensee is the company you rent or lease your idea to. I don't use the word sell, because if they don't perform, you get it back. And we guide our students to do contracts that if they mess up, you give them a chance probably, but if after a certain point, you could just take it right back, you know. Mallory also said, does a poor man's patent still work? It never did. The putting something in an envelope and mailing it to yourself, it's been proven not to stand up in court. It's not valid in any way, shape, or form. I'm kind of shocked that people are still talking about that. I don't hear about that often. When we started 21 years ago, we heard it all the time. But when we started 21 years ago, they didn't have a provisional patent application back then. So it doesn't matter where you are in the country, in the world, all our students file a U.S. provisional patent, and the U.S. government does not discriminate. You can file it for the same price as anybody anywhere in the world, which is a really cool thing. Some other countries get a little nasty with making it harder for non-citizens, which I think is BS. But let's see. I'm a 1 minute overtime here. Let's see. I think we're going to call it a night here. Did you guys find that helpful? If you want to type in for me, if you found that helpful, I appreciate it. I need you guys to do a favor for me. I need you to click subscribe on the channel. I think even though I'm on a live stream, I think you can still click subscribe. Please, if every one of you can click subscribe, I gave you a whole hour of free help. If you could all click subscribe. It's not like it doesn't give YouTube your username or anything like that, but it really helps us. We're trying to go from 40,000 subscribers, which we reached recently, to 80,000 subscribers. I'd like to do it within 6 months. So if you guys could all do that, that would be a giant favor. And then, you know, when you're watching all the YouTube videos, give a nice thumbs up, you know, comment maybe a little bit too. And that really helps us as well, you know, and like videos. So thank you, everybody, for all the nice things. All right, good deal. If you guys have, if you're interested in the program or coaching or anything, you can email me at andrew@inventright.com, RIGHT. And just remind everybody to, yeah, Kevin said, crazy not to subscribe for free information. Yeah, you'll find that when you watch our YouTube videos, we're not pitching our coaching program all the time and stuff. I think I talked about it more in this session than I ever have, because some of the questions people have and stuff, but we're really cool about it. So if you're like, hey, I don't want to be pitched all the time, you're not going to be on our YouTube show. So make sure to check out the show if you're new, and take care and keep inventing. See you guys. Bye.